Well, joining me now to look at the $60 billion frigate contract, as well as the controversy surrounding it, is Jeffrey Collins. He's a fellow with the Canadian Global Affairs Institute. Jeffrey Collins, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
Okay, well, first of all, we've got to talk about the nature of this contract going ahead, while one of the unsuccessful bidders, Lockheed Canada, is still taking the government to court, arguing that the specifications were rigged, that the bidding wasn't fair. They say that it was rigged in favor of Lockheed Martin. What do you make of what they're saying, the fact that this case is outstanding against the government?
Yeah, for sure. So probably worth stepping back. The process that was adopted for selecting this particular project was based on learning lessons from past. So, there are in the previous allegations of, rigging the specifications in favor of a certain ship, bids not being compliant, and then starting a contract over again. In the pre-2010 period, this was a common challenge to deal with. So the idea was that we will develop a process that is transparent, there's accountability built in, and so the federal government, in conjunction with urban shipbuilding, they put in place a fairness monitor. They broke down the process so that the financial aspects of the bid were left to last. So the idea was to try to bulletproof it enough so that these type of allegations would not be made. However, yet again, we saw an example in October when the Lockheed Martin-led consortium used the British Type 26 design, was seen as preferred bidder, and Allian went out and claimed that the specifications were rigged and what have you. Now they went through the Canadian International Trade Tribunal, and they were found to not have standing, but also, I should note, they were also found that the claim was premature. Now CITT has not yet published their in-depth and reasoning for why they reached that conclusion. I'm still waiting to read that. And same with the federal court. They want a judicial review, but beyond filing it and making their claims public, I don't know what substance there is to it. So I'm afraid we're going to have to kind of wait and learn. At the same time, it's worth noting that there were three bidders in the end. Of course, I said Lockheed Martin won. But the Spanish firm Navantia also decided not to make any such claims of rigging, and have not said really anything since October.
But is it wise for the government to go ahead if the tribunal still hasn't given its full decision and the federal courts still haven't given their decision? Is there any inherent risk in the federal government going ahead while these allegations are still pending? The other allegation was that the Allianz says that their ships would be $1 billion cheaper per frigate, and that the other two bidders had ships that were up and running and tried and true and tested, whereas the design that's been chosen is still being worked out, is still a prototype.
Right. So I should know, in the Canadian International Trade Tribunal, they actually made their decision, and that they said the claim had the firm had no standing. Okay. So again, we don't really know specifics. On the federal court, it's still working its way through, so I'm not sure what the substance is. But I will note that there were specification changes. Allian claims that 88 were made. There's no disputing that there were. I should note, though, that the original conception of this project went back to like 2008 to 2010, that period, and that it's been an iterative process of constantly changing. The federal government, with urban shipbuilding, built into their process this idea known as a cure process. So if there were problems found with early drafts of the bid, each of the bidders were allowed to go back and address them. So throughout this whole process, there were periods of time in which allegations could be made or charges made, especially the fact that it was a fairness monitor, and all what we can tell is that nothing was really brought forward, at least publicly. So that the fact that after the decision's made, then they complained about it and then claiming it could be made cheaper, it's hard to say. We only have them making that claim, and we should note that already in this project, France, Italian joint bid, or at least they were looking at submitting a final bid, also claimed that they could do this really cheaply and they could do it faster. It's all right to claim that without giving any substance to what those allegations mean. But clearly the federal government feels that they're okay with moving ahead in terms of risk analysis, because delaying this project even more, this adds more costs and drags it even more. And crucially, I should note, from an operational perspective, the Royal Canadian Navy does need to replace their 12 12 Halifax-class frigates into the 2030s. When this project was initially conceived, there was 3 destroyers, the Europa class, still in operational. Those have since been retired and scrapped because of the constant going delays. So there's operational considerations that were taken into account, I imagine.
I guess the other question is that then, in terms of the time frame, they're saying that this contract won't be completed until 2030, so all of the ships, and there's not necessarily 15 of them, won't be in service until 2030. Do you think you're optimistic about them reaching their time goal?
National shipbuilding strategy is a lot of estimates, and as you know, there's been many delays, so it's really hard to tell. They're saying that'll take 3 to 4 years now to go through customizing the British T-26 design to meet Canadian standards, and only then can they start construction. There was concerns over a gap, as you probably know, in the fall, there being 18-month production gap at the Halifax shipyard. That's been now essentially plugged. But any more gaps that emerge based on any delays, it brings into question the viability of the national shipbuilding strategy as a whole. So it's really hard to say if they'll meet the 2020s target of actually starting to build these things.
Well, we will watch with great interest, and something tells me we'll have a chance to speak to you about that between now and then. Thank you very much, Jeffrey Collins.
No, thank you. Happy to be on.